Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. I got Tyler Lingle here with me today. Excited to just dig into some conversation with you, Tyler, and stuff like that. We don't really. This is our first time actually meeting here on Zoom and stuff. We think we know of each other and have been in, we know a lot of the same people and things like that. But glad to connect with you, man, and glad to have you on. So how's it going?
Dude, absolutely. It's going fantastic. Busy times right now, but excited to kind of dig into this with you.
Yeah. So good stuff, man. So I know you've been, I kind of know you from the circles of being an investor buyer for or a realtor for a lot of investor buyers in here. And then I've seen some neighborhood videos that you and Ian DeFelice have done, like an awesome job on that stuff and things. Like I said, we know each other from a couple of circles and things, but why don't you start off with giving us a little bit of your background? So like kind of what were you doing and like how did you get into hey, I'm going to go ahead and get licensed. I'm going to work with some out of state investors and buy some houses for them, getting into some investing for myself. So what was your background? How did you get into that, man?
Dude, absolutely. So if you could have told me I would be where I'm at with working with numerous buyers, having investment properties 1 year into real estate, I would have said you're crazy. But if I kind of look back memento style and how it all came together, it makes more sense to me. But I actually started in urban education. And I love the city and I just wanted to be in the city and see kind of a different culture there because I grew up in the suburbs of Indy in Avon.
Yeah.
And if you know Avon, it's very like vinyl villagey feeling, lots of chain restaurants. So I moved to Irvington, and I think that in itself, choosing to be there in the center of the action in Irvington and watching my house, I bought in 2018.
Okay.
And if you know where the real estate market was at, it just probably doubled, honestly, from 2018
Yeah.
to 2021 when we sold. And we fixed it up. We painted the exterior. We did some work in the house. And I actually walked away from selling that house and it with a check for like 100 grand. So I'm thinking like, I got to do something with this money. And that's really when I hit it hard with real estate investing because I clearly saw that that's how you can make a lot of money in this market. And there's something special in Indy happening,
Yeah.
especially in the urban markets. And so I took that money and also that gave me leverage to be able to study for real estate, pass the test, and really hit the ground running, fully invested in real estate because I wasn't worried about my income at that point.
Yeah.
So buying that first house in Irvington for me in a developing neighborhood was huge. I house hacked it. I had roommates. So I didn't know that that would be an amazing move at the time, but it turned out to be pretty smart.
Nice, man. No, I'm excited for you. You were a lot smarter than myself at that age and things. So back if I one of those things of like, man, if I only would have known this, like I never even thought about house hacking when I was like back at your age or anything like that. So awesome job, man. That's fantastic. I
Oh,
want to
dude.
ask you, there's a bunch of different ways of like I want to kind of take this conversation, but one of the things that of you mentioned of hey, you had this basically you sold your house and you had $100,000. Like, how did you know where to put that? I feel like a lot of investors struggle with that. Of like, okay, I got some cash. I know real estate's hot. Real estate, I need to do something it's going to give me a great return, but they struggle with, knowing where to put it or what to do with it. They might hear like, oh, I heard Tyler talking about this on a podcast, or Brian mentioned this at a meetup, or and then like I'll just do this. But how did you figure out like kind of where you fit in and what you wanted to do with that money and how do you get that return?
Yeah, absolutely. So every day when I would drive to work, I actually drove from like Irvington to the west side. I worked on the west side. And so I would pass by like all that action happening on the near east side. So you had like new places coming in, like Need Hammer Coffee, Can Cinema, and then the houses were completely being flipped, like street by street. And I thought, this can't be that complicated. Like, I'm going to buy on one of the streets that is not yet developed. I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to make sure I'm, in the green each month. And I'm sure this will work out. And so, or I think it will work out.
Yeah.
I didn't have the firsthand experience, but I just had that strong hunch of like, go where the money's going, but get there a little bit early. And so that's what I did. And I was extremely lucky in that, well, I guess it wasn't all luck. I was putting myself out there saying I'm learning about investing.
Yeah.
I was preaching from the hilltops that I was in real estate school, ready to go. And someone approached me, a travel nurse that I was friends with named Corey. And he said, hey man, I have some money. I've been a travel nurse. I've been raking it in and I'm living at home and I'd like to get a primary residence in Indy and call it my tax base. You can do the work. I'll take care of the down payment.
Nice.
Right. And I'm like, this is like a gift from God. Like I absolutely have to do this. And so this was my first transaction actually. And so I kind of narrowed in on a couple markets, which we can kind of get into, but the Near East Side was one kind of close to my heart since I lived close to there in Irvington. And so we actually found one that was a quad. And we ran the numbers. I got a bigger pocket subscription because I didn't have a spreadsheet. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I got the bigger pockets subscription and punched in the numbers to what I saw was fit. Um, and the numbers spit out that it would like cash flow at least $300 for each of us every month.
Yeah.
And we are thinking, that seems good. Like in hindsight, I'm like, maybe that was a little not ambitious, but we went for it and it has been cash flowing for the most part every month.
Nice.
So I think that's just it. Kind of developing markets is what I focus on.
Yeah. So I love that. But what you even said too, you're driving from like the Irvington area over to, the West Side to work and things like that. So you're watching the progression happen. You're watching these neighborhoods and stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, I'm driving past Chester Street. I'm driving past all these other streets, and you're seeing like, okay, it's where's it gonna hit?
Right.
Where's it gonna go next? And that's where you went. So that's awesome, man. That's great stuff there. Congratulations too on that quad and things. I think that's awesome. Getting that your first investment property underway, and it sounds like it's going great, man. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and I can't stress enough, like getting that first deal under your belt. Uh, and I heard this, someone told me this. They were like, dude, even if it just breaks even, the amount of value you're gonna get from doing that first deal and trusting yourself and seeing that you can buy another house, rent it out, like it's very possible. And in Indy, our renter market's so strong that it's
Yeah.
like kind of easy to rent out. Like
Yeah.
we don't have to like advertise the heck out of it, slash the rents. Like it's very easy to do, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah. So no, definitely agree with you there. So just like you said of, hey, you get that first property underway, even if it breaks even, you're going to learn some stuff. So what are some of those lessons that you learned from that first, for that first property that you did and things like that and got under your belt? Like what are some of those, maybe one or two takeaways that you took from it?
Yeah, definitely. I think number one I already hit on is just like full send it. Like I get on the phone with a lot of people as a realtor who the perfect property seems to be right in front of them and they know it, but they find a reason not to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't have a garage. Oh, give me the CMA. These comps. So like I think just like at some point you have to full send it and go for it. But also by the same token, I think what I've learned is um having I get on the phone with people and I spell this out. It's a bigger pockets concept, like your CCC,
Hmm.
crystal clear criteria. And that has to be aligned, I feel like, with the actual market. So when people tell me they want 12% cash on cash return, I'm thinking like, yeah, that was great in 2018. Right now, I think it's more appropriate for you to try to hit for 5 and just reap the appreciation benefits, the equity pay down.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and so I think when they get on the phone, they understand the market and having that crystal clear criteria, at least for me, it's like, this is the return I'm hitting. I'm not going to budge from that. I'm going to be patient. This is the amount of rehab I can handle. And for me, I mostly do light value adds. I don't do full gut jobs. It's
Yeah.
just not something I enjoy. So if it's too much work, like if the foundation's extremely messed up or something, like I have to be willing to say like this might not be the one, even if I emotionally like it. So I think having that criteria that you do not veer from and you're going to be patient, but when the right one does match up, just trusting yourself and full sending it
Yeah.
would be the things that I think I've taken away from the first deal.
Yeah, I love that concept and really putting that out there and for people to understand that, taking that crystal clear criteria, that CCC, and then really kind of, hey, having that actually set, and then knowing like, okay, how far outside of that am I okay with?
Right.
Of okay, what's this? This is my 80%. How far can I go? 10% this way, 10% this way, and things like that. So that's awesome, man. That's a great tip. Um, when it comes to, so I know you got your license. What, a year ago is when you got your license?
It was actually, I think by the end of August is when I was like carded, I guess, and ready
Okay.
to go.
So I want to talk to you about that then and things. So I've been licensed for almost 5 years now and stuff like that. And I want to talk to you as a first year agent. A lot of people, there's so many new agents that come into the real estate space every year. And Actually, I was talking to my niece who lives in Boston, Massachusetts, like last week, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I think I'm just gonna get my real estate license." I'm like, "What do you? Why? Like, what do you know what that entails?" And like all that stuff.
Right,
So for those people out there that are thinking like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get into real estate and stuff," 100%. I love people getting into real estate, but
right.
how difficult is it, or how much work actually is it to become that realtor, to become that agent that is making a living and doing pretty well with it?
Yeah, no. So my first 2 months were eerily quiet. I went on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, and was like, "Hey guys, I'm a realtor. I'm ready to go." And it was crickets. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't like, "Hey, we can't wait to buy a house with you," an experienced agent. So that was a rude awakening. Was that you will make $0 unless you get to closing. Like
yeah,
that fact, I think people see on TV watching shows of realtors, like it seems like a fun, fancy lifestyle rolling in an Escalade, but it's really an entrepreneurial hustle.
yeah,
And so luckily, yeah, like my mentors framed it to me that way. Like you are an entrepreneur. Like you're handling lead intake, prospecting, marketing, your operations, your accounting. And when it was framed to me that way, I was excited because I was the type that wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was always scared to do something completely like invent something. I
right.
didn't have a good product. But when I realized like my product is me, that was like kind of great because I could kind of just like use all like podcasts like this, like all the training I'd been doing, books I'd read. I've read 7 books from Bigger Pockets Publishing, a lot of other real estate books. So like for me, it was like if I'm betting on myself, then this will work out. But I think understanding it's not like money's not guaranteed, and you have to like follow up and you have to create your own funnel.
Yeah,
So like with my funnel, and I'm just kind of going on a tangent here, so
you're good,
stop me.
man.
But my funnel, I kind of identified as like I'm gonna like pretty much preach from the rooftops on my Instagram page, on my Facebook, and meetings like this that I'm an agent. I love being an agent. I understand Indy. I understand investment properties. I have investment properties, and once they have that interest, I'm just kind of like adding value small in small ways all the time.
Yeah,
um, I saw this house, saw this deal. You might not be ready for it, but thought of you. Like that's sending them a message. That's just like slowly making them think like, oh, maybe I can do this. And I think if I don't think about it in that I'm trying to persuade people to do something they don't want to do. I think about it that if I truly believe that investing in Indy is amazing or buying a house in Indy is an amazing thing, and I can convince them of that, then they will. And like it's a win-win.
yeah.
So that's what's been cool is like it feels like a win-win. I don't feel like I've duped anyone with I think we've sold like over 40
Nice.
uh, properties, and most of those are investments, but a lot aren't. So, and it feels like everyone I'm pretty proud of. Like I think those are deals that are gonna do well.
Yeah. So I love the word that you use along with that of just being a realtor and putting yourself out there and things. It is a hustle. If you're that person that's going to get your license, just like, okay, I'm just going to like put my name out there and I'll just sit back and let the business come to me. That's probably not going to happen within your first, couple of years and things. So knowing that it is a hustle and being able to put your stuff out there too. Another thing you mentioned, I think is a really good tip too of doing, market yourself or put yourself out there and what seems comfortable for you. You
Yeah.
seem like you're very comfortable on social media and on Instagram, on Facebook, out there and doing things like that. So put yourself out there. Like that's what you need to go after and things. If you're not that person, maybe you're more of an in-person like networking meetup person, then focus on that and hit that up. So I think it's really good. You mentioned like some of the books that you've read. What's your go-to book? What was the one that was probably most impactful for you?
Oh man, that's a great question. So I'll give two, or I'll give three. The book that I think everyone should read, even if you're just like listening to this podcast or you've never done a deal, would be the book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner.
Yeah.
I it's just a good manual. I think I still like that is the baseline foundation that if I didn't read that, I would be very intimidated. Um, and I am one of those bigger pockets guys. Like I grew up listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and that's
Yeah.
what convinced me like, oh, this is how you gain financial freedom.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I know
there's a reason that Brandon has the
yeah,
platform he does. He knows what he's talking about. So yeah.
that one. And then if you're I'm sure there's some realtors listening. if you're a realtor, I actually found a ton of value in a book that will sound cliche, but it's really good. I think it's Sell It Like Sarant,
Yeah.
and it's Brian Sarant's book. And he's kind of a showboaty agent, like puts out a ton of reels and stuff. But his book is amazing content on how to understand a sales machine and how to build a sales machine. I read it before I had done any deals, and I just followed it like a hound. Like I did everything he said, and that book is amazing, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there's one more that I'll mention that you've probably read, maybe other people have read, which is Emerging Markets Real Estate.
Yeah.
That one I think is really good.
Yeah.
Another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it, man. So no, these are great ones. So I haven't read the Sell It Surround yet. So I'll need to check that out and things. So that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting one. It makes you wonder where Indianapolis is at within what he's describing, because he's all about like go to the developing market
Yeah.
and get out once it
Yeah.
starts to shift to more of a seller's market. But
Yeah. So you've mentioned a couple times of just like I can tell just by talking to you, and I know you're from here and stuff like that. But I feel like you have a love for Indy. You have a love for downtown Indy too, and just like what Indy has to offer for yourself, for families, for tenants, but also for investors and things like that. So what are some of those selling points? Like why where's that love come from Indy, and like what do you see in Indy that makes it such a great place for investors and for people to pick up their first investment properties or even like long term wealth as well?
yeah, great question. I think Indy is kind of a hidden gem because it doesn't get all the hype that other markets do, like South Florida or Vegas or something. Like they get a lot of speculators, a lot of people wanting to invest there. But like they're gonna like just go up like a roller coaster and then back down. Like we're
Yeah.
already seeing that happen. But Indy is somewhat overlooked, but it has the demographics to back up why you should invest there. So when I look at it, we are the fastest growing city consistently in the Midwest. In fact, we're one of the only states adding jobs in the Midwest, and that's not due to like the rural areas of Indiana. That's due to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So like we are a glimmering like sitting on a hill sort of in the Midwest. So we're doing something right, jobs wise, economy wise, and our population's growing. And I think I heard this recently. You might have to fact check me on this, but like when the '08 crisis hit, like Indy stagnated for 6 months. We didn't even price drop a ton. And then we just went back to like 2% per appreciation per year.
Yeah.
Like after 6 months was all it took. And other cities were like down for the count for like a year or so.
Yeah. Like
So
you
I
mentioned too, like we're,
uh,
some of the, when you look at markets like Miami or Las Vegas, Phoenix, San Diego, markets like that, like they're going to have that huge appreciation, those huge swings, and then also that huge down drop and stuff as well. Where Indy, that's what it is. You're not going to have that like huge appreciation, which we've kind of seen
right.
over the last couple of years, but you're also not going to have that huge depreciation where, like you said, just things kind of just level off, and it's Eddie, steady Eddie, and that's what it does and things, which is fantastic. So you mentioned
Absolutely.
the growth too, and just all the different things that are coming to Indianapolis. Like there's still such a job growth in Indianapolis as well, where there's basically I think there's 1.5 jobs being posted for every house that's available right now. So there's still a market to where people need to work. People are coming out for jobs that are coming to Indianapolis, but then there's still that housing. We still need houses for them and things like that. So there's still a great housing market and still kind of a boom that's almost possible here for Indianapolis in this somewhat of a recession already and stuff. So there is a huge growth model and things.
Yeah, that's a crazy stat, the job stat. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Another another stat that kind of boggled my mind that is a selling point when I'm on the phone with out of state investors is there's more investment coming in the city of Indianapolis or the mile square in the past 4 years than the past 25 years combined,
Yeah. That's nuts.
which is just like that amount of money like is going to produce, real estate changes majorly.
Yeah. So okay, I know I've seen your, we talk about your love for Indianapolis and what you're seeing from it too. You obviously have a love for that downtown area and like inside the city and feeling the city and things like that. Is someone that grew up in Avon and now you're in the downtown and you're ingrained in that stuff too. What does that what does that like when we're looking at investing, somebody's kind of trying to decide of like, oh man, do I invest in the outside? Do I invest in the suburbs or do I invest in the downtown? What could you argue like both sides for that of like how do you help an investor understand like kind of what they should be looking for and where they fit in?
That's a good question. And so I think the way I break it down to them is, why do you want to invest? Do you want to invest for appreciation and value gain on the back end, or do you want to invest to make money as you go? Or do you want both?
Yeah.
They usually say both. And
Yeah.
that's when I direct them to, personally, what I believe is a strong move, which is like C plus markets changing into B. So like developing markets, um, which would be like those near east sides, those Mapleton, Fall Creeks, those Garfield Parks, the west side a bit, although it's still early there, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
In the suburbs, like I think I just read this, Hamilton, Hendricks, and Boone County grew by over 20% the past 10 years,
Mhm.
which was a lot more than Marion County, which was more like 8% when I last looked. So, like, if you want your value to gain, go buy a house in Noblesville or Pendleton or Whitestown. But I'm not sure right now, with where interest rates are at, that you'll be making a lot of money per month or any
Right.
money at all.
Yeah.
You might just be bleeding out and just making money on the back end when you refinance or you sell it.
Yeah, so there's definitely, I think there's opportunity to be had kind of in both ways and things, but it's kind of what fits for your model, what you want to do. Like you said, with the appreciation and stuff like that, like you're probably going to want to go inside the loop, and you kind of get those gains and things like that. If it's more of a, hey, that long term play where you want that tenant that's going to come in here and probably live in your house for 5 years and stuff like that. So probably like the Whitestown and some of those emerging markets are maybe something you want to look at and things. But um, when you I know you work with a lot of out of state investors and things. So what are some of the I want to start with some of the, maybe not, I don't want to call it negative, but what are some of the things that you maybe see some of those out of state investors possibly making a mistake on, that you were like, hey, let's kind of fix this, or let's correct this, or what are some of those things that maybe you see them like, hey, we can do better here, when you're talking about an out of state investor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely trying to grow my local business, and I've gotten to help more local investors, but it's a little more established. Like, people have their realtor who like knows things. So out of
Yeah.
state investors was easier to crack into. Um, yeah, it's a great question. I think that a lot of them do have the problem with like buying something, they're so gung ho about it and they forget about it. They just put it on management and they don't care about the landscaping. They let it break down and maintenance fall through. And that can be terrible for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I try to have that conversation with them about, like, part of our role as investors is providing great housing for our tenants. And if I can tell they're just obsessed with only the numbers and they don't care about the city, the people, the lives they are affecting, then I'm not the realtor for them. Um, and they generally will treat me not great too, anyway. So we just like go our separate ways. I've definitely had some transactions that finished there. I was like, you know what? I don't think I'd work with them again.
Yeah.
And I could tell that they just weren't taking that into account.
Yeah, well, that's
So I
your
think
CCC within your business of who you want to work with and things like that too. You still have to have it. You have it within your investment criteria, but you have it within like who you work with and who you're building your team around and things like that too. It's all ties together and it's all important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I think it is somewhat of an ethical issue that I think about, but I also think that as more investors pump up the values of homes, increase the values of homes in Indy, a lot of people will rise in values with that. And soon it'll be too expensive for investors to even cash flow.
Yeah,
And it will all be owner occupied, which has happened in Broad Ripple and
yeah,
Fountain Square. So, I
hmm
mean, it's going to run its course. And really now is kind of that like window of time to seize opportunity in a lot of neighborhoods, in my opinion.
yeah, definitely. Those the out of state investors that you've worked with and things that have had success. Where have you? Is there anything that stands out about them that like makes them like, okay, that's why this person's successful, or this is why I want to work with them? What are some of those traits that they maybe have?
Yeah, that's huge. They definitely understand the numbers themselves. Like, the ones that are relying completely on me, um, I really don't even know if I want to work with, because that's a lot of liability for me to say this is going to be a great investment. So like they all like have done the work to find a spreadsheet, to run the numbers, to practice themselves. A lot of them have been saying like they've looked at Zillow deals, and then they take the time. Like, it's very simple things. They have the discipline to actually pop open my search, find a deal, run the numbers, and send it to me with, a bit of their analysis, and then
Nice.
that helps me back it up with my analysis. And then when like minds meet, we can go in with an offer and get it done. Most of the deals I'm doing are on the MLS. We do a lot with like multifamily. So
Hmm.
I'm trying to become like the multifamily guy in Indy actually.
There you go.
So a lot of that is what we do. So yeah, I would say those things.
Nice. So I know you and if you definitely check out, Tyler on social media and stuff if you haven't not or if you haven't yet and things. I know you and Ian have done some neighborhood videos and just checking out some different things like that. What are some of the things that you've learned from there, and why do you think that's important for kind of just highlighting some of those neighborhoods and what's going on there, what the feel is for them, the good places to eat and things like that? How important is it? That's the stuff that I love to talk about actually too. So I love that stuff. But why is that important for investors to also understand?
Yeah, definitely. I think the narrative of a neighborhood is extremely important. So like right now we have a very strong narrative of Indy in general. Like Bottle Works just opened, IU Health is expanding, Penske took over Speedway and he's investing billions of dollars. Like we are in a huge boom phase of our city. And a lot of these neighborhoods are like pretty much got ghosted during white flight and became run down and abandoned.
Yeah.
And we're seeing like the beautification of that happen. So we thought there was a huge need in the market for like someone to go to these neighborhoods and highlight them. Like so we find three local businesses and we kind of break down what we're seeing in this neighborhood, like what's its kind of cultural thing. And we looked around and no one was doing it.
Yeah.
Like there was no one really, there was maybe a couple YouTube videos, but no one was doing it on Instagram. And we're like, we can do this. So I approached Ian with this idea and he's got the videography skills to make it look a lot cleaner cut than I could.
Yeah.
So we really enjoy doing it. We literally learn something about the neighborhoods every single time
Yeah.
we go there, and they're just great places. And what's cool about Indy is like people are very proud of their neighborhoods.
Hmm.
Um, and it's very fun to see that they're all distinct in their own way.
Yeah. So no, I definitely recommend that. Whether you're a local Indianapolis investor or you're out of state investor, no matter what it is, if you're like, make sure you're traveling around and checking out everything. So I know I fall into that habit every time of like, oh, I'm gonna stick in my Carmel bubble for a couple of weeks, but then I go down to Broad Ripple or go down into Emerson Heights. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. Like I always have to remind myself of like I need to get out and explore things a little bit more. As much as I feel like I know the city, like there's so much more to explore and things like that. So do you have like a hidden gem neighborhood that you feel like is what's the next one? Maybe it doesn't get enough love of with people talking about it on podcasts like this and things like that. What's that hidden gem that maybe that neighborhood that isn't getting enough love, man?
Yeah. You could definitely say there's some that are getting a bit oversaturated, like Fountain Square.
Yeah.
When an investor calls me and say, I want to buy a $200,000 duplex in Fountain Square, I'm just like, oh boy, here we
Yeah.
go. We have a piece of work here.
Yeah. Which 2018 podcast did you listen to?
Right. Like if you see one of those, like I'm gonna be buying it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I would say that the neighborhoods I think are undervalued. And I don't want to give away my secrets too much, but at this
Yeah.
point, we're all adding value to each other. I just bought an Airbnb in Christian Park,
Yeah.
which most people think of Christian Park, they might not think Airbnb. It's doing good though. It's getting bookings, and I think it's on the verge of a big beautification and a lot. I think the median price would have to be around like 120 there. No
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of little bungalows, but Christian Park is huge. And then if I could throw one more in, I think Bean Creek
Hmm.
near Garfield Park. Garfield Park, it's like its bigger brother, like it's a lot more love. But I think Bean Creek is another one.
Yeah.
I haven't invested there personally, but I think it's a good one to look at.
Yeah, so really good. I feel like it's Bean Creek has kind of been on that verge of like, hey, it's been a good rental property market for a while. You're starting to see where, hey, I think I can start flipping some properties in there, and actually some families moving in there, some younger couples moving in there, and stuff like that. So that's on that verge too. So no, great tips there, man. Before I get you out of here, I do want to hit on your number one. Congratulations on just launching your Airbnb, a couple weeks ago and things. So awesome job there. What's a lesson you learned from, because that was your first Airbnb, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
what's a lesson you learned from going through that process and launching, getting that first Airbnb of your own launched and things like that? What's a lesson that stood out to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think someone said this and it really stuck with me, which is like there's two general paths to go with an Airbnb. Either one, you go the economy route and you price accordingly and you go to IKEA and get all your stuff there or Wayfair, or you go the like premium experience way where you're like have a product.
Yeah.
And we decided to go the premium experience since Christian Park wasn't the it neighborhood.
Hmm.
Like it's not Fountain Square. It's further from Indy. It's 10 minutes at least from downtown. So we made it a boho theme, like bamboo, everything. And I think it's working. Like
Nice.
we're booked up about every weekend for the next month or two. So I think like deciding which route you're gonna go, and I think both are super viable.
Nice, man. Congrats on that. So are you managing it yourself?
I actually am managing it myself. I weighed the options, but felt like if I want to speak to it to investors, I want to like have the experience of actually having my hands on the controls.
Yeah, sounds
So
good, brother. We'll have to do a check in here in a couple months and see how that's going and stuff, and what you recommend, or like, oh no, I handed it off, I'm done with that, or no, man, it's going great.
yeah,
So I love to hear it.
it very well could be.
So awesome, man. So if I definitely want to give you a chance to plug yourself and what you're doing here, and give some people to reach out to you, or give people a chance to reach out to you as well. If somebody wants to just learn more about you, what you're doing, check you out on social media, or reach out to you to be like, oh man, I want to work with this guy in some way, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to reach out to me is on Instagram, where I'm definitely talking about real estate every single day. That's where my video tours are of the neighborhoods with Ian. And my handle on there is Tyler_Lingle. And I think that's the best way because then if we want to delve into like meeting for coffee or something, we'll just DM me
Yeah.
and let's make it happen.
So awesome, man. Love it. Any last little tip or a little nugget that you want to drop in here before we jump off?
Oh man, just like for people on the sidelines, just jump in. Like whether it's a wholesale deal, a turnkey rental property, get a family and friends partner, equity partner, or debt partner, get a loan, and just make it happen. Because right now in Indy, it's very hard to miss
Yeah.
in this current moment. So like, just get off the sidelines.
So love it. Great stuff, man. Really appreciate you being on here. For the listeners out there, if you need anything from me, don't feel free to hit me up at brian@simplewholesaling.com. More than happy to help you out with whatever you need. And with that, that's a wrap for this episode of the Indy Investor Pod. We will see you guys next time. Take care.